Hi and welcome back to Writer's Block. I'm Lee and today I have a book haul. I have already filmed this once already, but I realised my mic was off when I went to edit it, so I'm going to have to do it again, and so I'm going to try go quite quickly through them all. The first book I have is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. This is a sci-fi fantasy, and it's about a guy called Tracker who is a hunter, and he's kind of known as being the best hunter in the country, and he always works alone, but then when he's put on a mission to find this mysterious boy, he ends up having to team up with this ragtag group of misfits who include a giant, a witch, and a shape-shifting leopard, and he has to follow them and team up with them to try and find this mysterious boy and figure out why everyone wants to get a hold of this mysterious boy. The next book is one I have already read, which is Recognized Fascism, edited by Crystal Huff. This is a short story collection. I originally read it from NetGalley. I rated it 4.5 stars. I didn't rate it 5 stars because the last story is kind of bad, but every other story in here is really, really good. So they're all sci-fi and fantasy short stories about fascism. Most of them are on the sci-fi end of it. There is also a New Zealand author in here, which is the main reason why I requested it from NetGalley. Octavia Cade, which I have also read her most recent book, The Impossible Resurrection of Guilt. Unfortunately, her book in here is like only 2 pages. All of the stories in here come with a little bio at the end of each story of the author, and then it comes with a trigger warning for each of the stories as well. So for instance, this one says manipulation, police and weapons. This one says alcohol, homelessness, manipulation, violence and xenophobia. The next is a middle grade fantasy called The Jumbies by Tracy Baptiste. So this is based on Caribbean mythology about these monsters called Jumbies who live in the forest, and it follows Corrine, who doesn't believe in these monsters and thinks they're just scary stories parents tell to freak their kids out. But then one day when she's in the forest, she sees these large yellow eyes following her around, and she starts to question if maybe the stories are true. And then the next day she sees this mysterious woman she's never seen before on her island in the village, and she gets a very bad feeling that this woman is somehow connected to the Jumbies and is somehow evil. Corrine has to go on a mission to save her village from this woman and the Jumbies, who are secretly trying to take over the whole village and learn to use these ancient magics that she didn't know she possessed to save her home. The next book is Falling into Hangar by Steph Matuku. This is a book about the Maori underworld of Rarotonga, and it follows teenage twins Tui and Kai, as when they get home from school they discover that their mother has been kidnapped and taken down into Rarotonga by their abusive father, so they have to go and enter the underworld themselves and try and rescue her while staying alive and surviving all the demons down there and surviving each other as these demons try to manipulate them and turn them against one another. This is based on Maori mythology, and it is actually by a Maori author as well. The next book is Nosferatu by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, and in case it wasn't obvious from the title Nosferatu, this is about vampires. So this one follows a vampire called Charles who stalks the road in his car, has the license plate Nosferatu, to kidnap children and take them to his Christmas land, which is this magical theme park where being unhappy is against the law. While he's there, he tortures and kills the kids and steals their soul. Only one kid has ever escaped, and that was Victoria McQueen, but now 30 years later she's an adult. She's like kind of forgotten about all the trauma she had to face, but then unbeknownst to her, Charles hasn't forgotten her, and he's dead set on revenge and recapturing the one person who escaped him, and he has now kidnapped her one and only son and taken him to Christmas land. The next book is When Life Gives You Mangoes by Karen Gretton. This is a contemporary middle grade set in a small village, Sagamore, where Clara lives, where she spends all of her summers playing with her best friend Gaina. There's only one problem, and that she can't remember anything that happened previous summer. But then one day a new girl arrives at the island called Ruby, and everything starts to change as Gaina starts acting weird, and Ruby and Clara end up teaming up, and as they are becoming friends, they end up discovering and unearthing some deep dark family secrets, and in doing so it starts to jog Clara's memory, and she has to start to face about what happened the previous year. The next book is A Dark Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Most people already know what this is about, most people have already read it. As far as I'm aware, this is an adult fantasy about some multiple universes where you've got like Grey London, Red London, Black London and White London. Some of them have magic, some of them don't, and we follow a guy called Kel who has the power to travel between these Londons, and so he uses that ability to smuggle artifacts between the different universes, but then one day he ends up smuggling something that's a bit too important and a bit too dangerous, and it ends up spiraling out of control and he has to kind of go on the run. That's what I think this is about. I'm not entirely sure. The blurb on the back of the book doesn't actually give much information. It just tells you that there's different Londons. Next is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is his YA sci-fi debut. In this one we follow a girl called Spencer who dreams of becoming a pilot in this academy to try and help with a war effort against these attacking aliens. Only problem is her father used to be a pilot, but he was deemed a traitor after during a battle he fled and abandoned his post. As a result, Spencer and her entire family are ostracized and they are all labeled traitors, and they are kind of forbidden from holding jobs or holding any position, and so she's pretty much unable to get into the academy, but she ends up managing to prove herself worthy of it. But every single day she's in the academy she has to again continue to fight to stay in there and to prove that she deserves to be there, because everyone in there wants her out and also thinks she's a traitor. All the while they are fighting off an onslaught of deadly aliens. The next book is also a short story collection called How Long Till a Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. I'm not sure if there's anything that ties these stories together other than the fact they're all by N.K. Jemisin. So because they're by her, I'm expecting them to be on the speculative end, some sci-fi and some fantasy. There is one story in here that I have already read, which is A City Born Great, which is the prequel to The City We Became, which came out 2 years ago. There is also, I've heard, some short stories in here that are also prequels to some of her other series as well. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything overall tying these stories together, so there's not really much to say about it other than it's a short story collection. The next book is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So this is set, I think, in the 30s, in which a girl called Naomi gets a letter from her newlywed cousin who says she's in distress and she's in danger and she needs her help. So Naomi, goes down to visit her cousin to try and rescue her, but when she gets there she finds her cousin tells her that everything's perfectly fine and she has no idea what she's talking about. But Naomi decides to stay on anyway and stay there for a few days to weeks to kind of figure out what's actually happening, why on earth she sent this letter if everything's perfectly fine. And the longer she stays there, she starts to realise that there is something going on, and her cousin's new husband and his father are a bit odd and a bit possibly dangerous, and the house itself that they're living in is potentially malevolent itself and is trying to corrupt everyone who lives there. The next book is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I waited to get this anniversary illustrated edition of it because I think the cover is a lot better than the normal covers. It also has stenciled edges as well as painted end pages and a foiled cover. There is also full-colour illustrations in the middle of the book, which were handpicked by V.E. Schwab as some of her favourite fan art that people had done of the series. Otherwise, there is only a few black and white illustrations throughout it. There's one of the book and ones like that, so they are quite few and far between. But most people have already read this, you probably already know what it's about. It follows Addie LaRue, who's a young woman in the 1700s in France, who is about to be married off to someone who she very much does not want to marry, so in an act of desperation, she makes a deal with a devil-like creature in order to get out of this marriage, but also to live forever. But as a consequence of this, she is forgotten by everyone she ever meets, and she is unable to make any mark on the world at all. She can't hold down a job, no one knows her name, there can never be any photos of her, and so explores as she then spends the next 300 years living a life like this and being forgotten by everyone who she ever meets, until one day she's in New York in present time and she meets a man who remembers her, and the story kind of follows on from that. The last book is another middle grade, which is A Wolf for a Spell by Cara Sutton. This is also an illustrated edition. So this follows a wolf called Zima, who her and her entire pack are scared of humans and always have been, but when her pack is threatened, she's forced to go and get the help from this witch called Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is a mythological and folktale figure from Eastern Europe, and so she tries to get her help, but Baba Yaga never does any magic for free, but she actually needs a wolf to help her on her own mission. So she agrees to help Zima, but she tricks Zima and ends up switching bodies with her, so Zima is stuck in the old body of Baba Yaga while Baba Yaga steals Zima's wolf body. But then while Zima is stuck in the body of Baba Yaga, villagers start coming to her for her help because they think she's the witch. But then when they do, they discover that they actually face a common enemy and that the wolves and the humans are actually going to have to unite together in order to survive the evil that threatens them all. So that is all the books for this book haul. Leave a like if you like the video, or subscribe if you wanna. Down in the description you will find links to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and our website. Otherwise we will see you in a video next week from Press.